and how this moral, message is so strong that, people always like to go into watching a cinema kung fu movie is because you always want to see the bad guy got beaten up.
We in Spoiler Time, we are a very fan of kung fu movies. All the crew, and a lot of users of Spoiler Time are very fan of action movies, and special of kung fu movies, fight movies. And I think it's very important for us. We can now see all the legacy of the Shaw brothers to the cinema. How do you think the Shaw brothers films are important in the cinema world?
Well, I think the Shaw brothers films are very important in Asia cinema world. To some extent, I think it's also important in world cinema too. Shaw brothers got started in the 1950s, 60s, and then it dedicated like 50 years producing more than 1,000 films, to the world. Well, by that time, when they produced it, it was like a very popular, very famous studios in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a very small area, and we don't have many, studios by that time. But also, very strangely, Hong Kong also has the highest output of films to Asia and also to the world. So this thanks to the Shaw Brothers studio. They keep producing, great movies, for the world audience. And I think why it's important to cinema in general, because not just the output we are talking about, you have over 1,000 films that they produced in the past 50 years, but also a lot of these films did set as a pace setter, a trend setters to world cinema. One of the major genre that Shaw Brothers films are noticeable are the martial arts kung fu movies. By the time the golden ages, 1960s and 70s, they produced like more than hundreds, kung fu movies to the world. These kung fu movies include many kind of styles, whether it's a Shaolin kung fu movie, whether it's a sword fighting using weapons, spears and all that, those Chinese weapons, style kung fu boxing, boxer, those are really, really a trend setter by that time and so popular, and that it actually inspired not just the Asian but a lot of audience around the world. In the States, they're so crazy about kung fu movies, and in the Europe as well. And so when they think about kung fu or Shaolin wuxia movie, they only think about the Shaw Brothers, the Shaw Brothers brand. This is like a mirror image to them when you speak of kung fu. Of course, to mention maybe to the worldwide audience, they think of only the kung fu movies, but the library itself consists any genre that you can think of. You have action, you have car chasing, that kind of action. You have drama, you have opera music, you have erotic titles, you have horror titles. Actually, you name it, we have it. It's a huge library. But of course, as I say, the main the main focus, of course, is going to be the kung fu movies, but it's actually a library of all the genres.
And now I think the influence of these films is not only the cinema, in the culture in general, in music and clothing and clothes. How do you think these movies influence the culture in general?
Well, I think I think this is a very deep question. I think first of all, I think movies not supposed to influence anything. I think they're just for stimulations, and if there have to be a role in culture, I think it is the message that spread out from these kung fu movies. Is like, justice always prevail, and all the villains always being revenged and be defeated. I think the moral message is the key, instead of many other messages, because all the kung fu films, they're very simple. They go down to a core. It's like the bad guy and the good guy, and the bad guy die and the good guy always win. So when you have this kind of a message coming out, it makes you to feel the world better, because in reality it may not be the case. But in the movie world, in the martial arts world, it's very simple. It's always, you know, revenge, you know, injustice, and, you know, all the bad guys, bullies, is always, you know, got punished. And so I think, but in other way, instead of doing, you know, getting this on a cultural level, I think the film itself, as you said, that actually influenced a lot of other, you know, cinemas, and many, you know, forthcoming cinemas after the Shaw Brothers Studios, not just Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, but also Reza from the Wu-Tang Clan. They all paid tribute to the Shaw Brothers, and how, you know, the Shaw Brothers kung fu movies, how they inspire and transpire them in making the films, or the choreography, or the Matrix, you know, also using the Hong Kong stunt, you know, action directors, also how they actually got inspired by all this choreography, the kung fu films. I think on that level, the Shaw Brothers did actually produce a lot of a legacy, you know, to the rest of the film directors and to the cinema world. You know, how this kung fu you know, styles is perceived, and how this moral, you know, message is so strong that, you know, people always like to go into watching a cinema kung fu movie, is because you always want to see the bad guy got beaten up.
But now we have the opportunity to see all these movies and all this glory in our screens through MUBI, in association with Cestial Pictures. I want to thank you for all these minutes you have give us to learn about a little more about the.
It will be a waste, right, if we don't do that. So we have to do that. Yeah.